Hello, welcome to What's Happening with the fourth grade math scores at Bryan Elementary, part of Jefferson County School System in Birmingham, Alabama. My name is Gail Clutton, and I'd like to welcome the fourth grade parents who have had some questions about how their math scores are trending, and thank the PTA board for allowing me to put this presentation together for their use. Let's talk about Bryan Elementary demographics for 2020-21. Understanding and noting that demographics will change greatly in the 21-22 school year because of the rezoning that's happened. But for 2020, we had about 830 students, down from our typical 870 students. Almost 90% of our student body is white, 8% African American, and the remainder less than 2% of any of the other categories. 26% of our students are classified as economically disadvantaged, which means we are not a Title I school. 83% of our student body is served in the regular education class, leaving 17% of our kids to be out of the classroom as special education students. The average is typically 10 to 13%, so we're a little bit high on special education students. Fewer than 10% of our students have a limited English proficiency. And our fourth grade student body contains about 143 students. Those are the number of students who took this assessment. So who am I and what am I talking about? I'm a fourth grade special education resource teacher, which means I go in and help kids and I pull kids out in a small group. I push in for math instruction. It seems to be the best way for students to get the whole group instruction and not miss out on anything. And I have some concerns about our math scores as well. So what am I talking about? Well, the only assessment I could look at that was consistent over the past several years has been our performance series. Our students took this in fourth grade. They also took it in third grade and in second grade. So it gives me an ability to look at trends. So I looked at 2021, 1920, and 2018 and 19 as well. So this is a score report. It shows the English language arts and math grade 4 assessments and percentages. I'm only concerned about the math at this point, so I'm going to pull out just the math scores and let's talk about it a little bit. The green category is the above average category, with the light green being average high and the light pink being average low. Those are the categories we really would like to see our students in. Then the below average category is where we don't want to see a lot of our students trending. But there are some good things to look at on this report. For example, right here, the 26% of this class performed in the above average range. And over here on this other side in the red, only 8% of this class was in the below average range, which are some good trends we want to keep seeing going forward. There are some other reports that are provided by Performance Series. We can get reports by students that show the student trends. We can look at exactly where students place in different areas. And we can also get a classroom report. We can compare the same teacher and the different students in that class and see how they compared. I'm not concerned with the individual students at this point. I want to look at the trends of the classes and the grades. So let's take a look at demographics. Fourth grade class is broken up, as all our classes are, into 3 categories. We have the general ed students, as I said, those students who receive all of their education in the regular classroom with their teacher. They don't get pulled out for small group. And then we have gifted kids who get pulled out for small group enrichment, and we have ex-ed kids who get pulled out for small group intervention. In our fourth grade, 143 students, we have 67% of them are general ed students, 19% show gifted, and only 14% are special ed students, ex-ed students, closer to the average trend. So you might ask, what about my class? Well, I looked at all 6 fourth grade classes, and the general ed students typically are just about the same number. So there isn't any data that's skewed by one class or the other having more or fewer gifted or ex-ed students to pull scores up or down. All the classes are generally equal, which is a good sign. So let's take a look at the actual data. So I listed here above average, average high, average low, and below average for every class in the fourth grade for this past year. And what we're looking for are scores that are on a typical bell curve. We want to see that this average or this average high or this above average is about the same number as the below average. That's what the trend should be. But you can see here, the kids who scored above average are well below the number of kids who scored below average. We're looking for kids moving from below average up to the above average range. So I grouped them together in above average, average high, average low, below average by class. And this trend looks much better with a high here, but there are some lows and some highs that we can take a look at. That'll help us understand what's going on with our scores. So then I went back and looked at the 1920 year where this group of students was in third grade, and understanding that the data may be incomplete due to COVID closure, but these scores are generally a little bit closer with a few highs and lows. Still can't tell what the trend is with these students. Grouping them together, we have a high number of average, low, and below average students. We would like to see that be a little less jagged and look at those trends. So let's go back one more year. Looked at when these kids were in second grade. And other than a little bit right here, everybody else is pretty equal and pretty even. And it tells me in second grade, more of the kids were on the same level playing field, and things have started to change over the last 2 years. This is how that second grade year grouped together, with a lot of kids in the middle, which is where we want to see most of the kids, and a few on either end. So in second grade, their statistics look like an average school classroom. So what does it mean, and what happens now? Well, let's talk about what it means. Let's take one more look at that. So just review where those trends were. Look at the jagged differences in the current fourth grade scores versus the much closer second grade scores. And let's see what happens as a trend. So I took those and made averages. I included all the kids who were in the average or higher range, including our above average, average high, and average low ranges, because that's where we want to see our students. And over the last 3 years of data, it shows a downward trend. That means fewer students are performing in those average range. And then I looked at the below average scores, and started out as a downward trend, but ultimately this shows more students in the below average range, which is the opposite of what we want to see. So what now? So there's some things going on both inside and outside the school that we can talk about. Changes going on outside the building. Well, the state of Alabama has adopted a new math course of study and some new math standards, and we will fully implement those this year. So everybody will be using the same standards across the board from school to school and class to class. Jefferson County has also adopted a new math curriculum called Ready Classroom Mathematics by Curriculum Associates, which is going to provide us a lot of information, a lot of data, and a lot of intervention. And of course, we do need to consider that some of this trend might be COVID related. We don't have any data that shows how that's going to pull together, but that might be some of what's going on. We just need to make sure we acknowledge that trend. So what about things inside the building? So there's some recommendations as to what we can do inside the building. First of all, we need training on the new standards and the new curriculum. All of our teachers need to be on board with understanding the new standards and how the new curriculum applies those standards. Teachers across the board need to all be using all aspects of the new curriculum. There are lots of tools and things in place that will help us identify students as they struggle and intervene to keep them from continuing on that downward spiral. Teachers need to improve the use of formative assessments. A formative assessment is that assessment that the teacher can give before she starts teaching a unit. See what the students already know, what they remember from previous years, and what their prior knowledge is. And that can help a teacher identify what areas she might need to, or he might need to stress, and what areas the kids have a good grasp on. And then we need to make frequent use of progress monitoring administered by the teachers. They need to be checking in small pieces as they teach math to make sure that they don't get to the end of the unit and discover that many of the kids were lost somewhere along the way. Progress monitoring helps identify those students who are struggling. And then as those students are struggling, we can do targeted intervention for them. Whatever skill they haven't mastered, they're struggling with, we can pinpoint it much sooner and be able to intervene and help them gain the understanding that they need to make progress. And we need to continue monitoring these data trends and make sure that the changes that we're making inside the building are actually having an impact the way we want them to. And the last thing is we need to help students take ownership of skill mastery. Students engaging in their own learning makes a big difference in how well they do. Students need to learn how to set goals and how to progress monitor themselves so that they know whether they're reaching their goals and to be able to have a conversation about whether or not that's actually happening. If we make these changes as we implement the new curriculum, we should see that trend change from a downward move with our high kids and an upward move with our low kids to the other way around, where we're seeing more and more kids achieve on a high level. I appreciate you coming to my presentation. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me, or you can reach me at Class Dojo or call in the school phone and leave me a message, or send a note with your student and let them give it to me, and I will reach out and contact you. Again, any questions, get in touch with me. I appreciate you attending. Thank you and have a great day.